Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders. How's it going, all you Minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the latest printing of Nightwing, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus from DC Comics. So let's take a look at this together. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have the latest printing of the Nightwing, Prince of Gotham Omnibus. And this has been previously printed before. As a matter of fact, I'll be doing a comparison to the original printing over here on the left. Looking at the cover, it's identical. And the DC logo, of course, being different. The font at the bottom looks a little different. It still looks like they're using the same font. It's just doesn't stand out as well as these over here. But let's look at the spine of the book. Nightwing, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus, the DC logo, Dick Grayson's face up here. Nightwing logo. This red seems a little bit darker than the red over here. As a matter of fact, the whole tone of the book seems just a little bit darker than over here. Like, you can see it through those pages. And it is a little bit slimmer. And that's mainly due to the type of paper stock they're using. On the left-hand side, we have the original printing right here. The retail price, $99.99. And the new printing is also $99.99. New ISBN, though. And I do love the fact that they're keeping the same design of the dust jacket. Here, let's take it off the dust jacket, and I'll show you what I mean. With that red symbol that is spread across there. Very nice. Oh, let's put the dust jacket back on, and I'll show you exactly where it goes on your shelf. So this is really your first Nightwing Omnibus in chronological order. It goes right before the Grayson Omnibus and definitely before the Rebirth Omnibus. So we don't have any other Nightwing Omnibus that comes before this. We have other stories collected in the compendium editions and trade paperbacks, but not in Omni format. And again, the flaps over here, identical to the flaps of the new printing. And underneath the dust jacket, we have the art on board. This fight against the Court of Owls, the Nightwing logo there, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus, the DC logo. Then yes, it's just a little bit slimmer. And then this piece back here, the front piece is by Eddie Barrows, and the back piece here is by Russell Dauterman. Yeah, who actually does some early artwork in here. So we are going to be opening this omnibus up, talking about the stories found in here, and looking at this artwork. I think I've done an overview of this already on the channel. I never go back and look at my old overviews, so maybe I'm going to be repeating myself, maybe not. So I'll do a comparison internally here in a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and get this omnibus open. I love the end sheets here with this new symbol of Nightwing. Instead of blue, we're going with red. Nightwing, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus. And your credits over here, like Kyle Higgins, Tom DeFalco, Scott Snyder, Tim Seeley, and Tom King. And your artists like Eddie Barrows, Will Conrad, Andre Gunaldo, Brett Booth, Doug Mankey, and also Russell Dauterman. Rod Reyes, Guy Major, Chris Sotomayor, some of the colorists, and your letterers like Carlos Mangual, Wes Abbott, and Richard Starkings. And your table of contents right here telling you where you're going to find each of these issues. And there are page numbers. Just, I love letting people know ahead of time. And then, of course, what issue you're looking at and when it was originally published. To a lot of people, like myself, this is really important. I love to know when it was originally published. And then when, like, for example, why choices are made when you're putting in a story from another series that came out, like, maybe sometimes 6 months before the story arc that you're reading about. So I love to know the reasoning behind that, and it's really cool. For example, you have this story right here from April 2013, but the last story that's collected in here is from July of 2014, from issue number 30. So let's talk about that. What is collected in this particular omnibus? Collected in this omnibus is the Nightwing 0 through 30 series, the series that started in 2011, annual number 1, Batman number 17, Secret Origins number 1, Young Romance and New 52, Valentine's Day special number 1. The book has 824 pages and retails for $99.99. So this is the era of Nightwing when there was a New 52. And if you're not familiar with the New 52 universe, it's when Flashpoint happened and DC took its time to say, okay, we're going to revamp some of these characters. We're going to retell some origins. Some of them had a hard reboot, sort of like Superman and Wonder Woman had some hard reboots. Batman and Family didn't really, with the exception of Batgirl. But some things had changed. Like they took this opportunity to let writers change some of the things that have happened in the past for these particular characters. So I am going to be talking a little bit about spoilers, mainly the pitches of what's happening through this particular series at the very beginning, in the middle, and then kind of what sets it up to go to Grayson towards the end of the series, because Grayson is the next omnibus, as I showed you a little bit earlier. So Kyle Higgins is your main writer at first. He comes on board as the main writer on Nightwing. And what he does is he takes Nightwing back to his roots of Gotham City. Not really under the cape of Batman per se, but more so doing his own solo thing. There are ties to several characters here that you're going to see. But it's basically Dick Grayson going back to his roots of the Haley Circus. And the Haley Circus is part of his origin story. It's part of who he is. So to me, it makes sense to, okay, let's go back to that. And for the very first time, the Haley Circus is now in Gotham City. So we're introduced to this new character, kind of his love interest at first, Raya Vestry, who, much like Dick Grayson, is part of this act at the circus. And we're also introduced to this new villain, or maybe a good guy type of character, just doesn't know how to really, doesn't really know, as the, maybe it's you as the reader aren't supposed to know exactly what he is, because he may have ties to Dick Grayson, he may have ties to the Haley Circus. So the Haley Circus is in Gotham, and it comes with a mystery. There is a murder that happens to somebody very important to the Haley Circus, and somebody very important to the life of Dick Grayson. And you still get things in here like Barbara Gordon coming to visit. Again, this is the New 52, and finding out about this new lady named Raya. This new villain here, let me skip a little bit through here. This new villain, or perhaps a good guy, perhaps an ally one day, is named Saiko, S-A-I-K-O. And he plays an important part through the very beginning of the series, as well as Raya. She also plays an important part through here. So again, like that first arc is all about finding yourself, going back to his past, dealing with the death of his parents and how it affected him, but also learning to deal with the things that are now in front of him because of everything from his past. The second story arc ties it heavily into the Court of Owls storyline that was happening at the same time in the New 52 during Scott Snyder's run. So much so that this is what I was talking about when writers were able to sort of retcon some things. There's a little bit of history for Dick Grayson that gets retconned into this particular series. But then again, it's the New 52, so they were starting over anew. But one of the things that they do is they tie his legacy or his heritage to that of the Court of Owls. So the Night of Owls, as this particular era is called, is him facing this legacy with Talon and the fight against all of the Court of Owls, while Bruce is dealing with his own issues. Now, that will lead into the next story arc, because this is one big story. The next story arc is a big crossover with the pages of Batman. Primarily Batman number 17, which is the big death of the family story arc. And this, oh, I forgot to mention about this guy right here, Paragon, Gotham's true son, the future of the city. hinges on the death of Nightwing. Who is this character? So we are going to see some new characters through here, but also some classic characters. Because as I mentioned, this ties it into the death of the family story arc, where the Joker is able to finally kidnap a lot of these characters, including Dick Grayson, and showcasing them and having a giant dinner with Batman. And if you've read that issue and you've read all of the Batgirl or the issues of Detective Comics or this or even Red Hood and the Outlaws, you know that all those collections have Batman 17 in there. And we'll show you a little bit of that here in a second. Issue number 0 is all about his background, Nightwing's background, Dick Grayson's background, but tying it this time around to Lady Shiva. So she plays an important part in his background. So this is issue number 17, the punchline. So something really, really important and horrible happens in Nightwing's life through these issues. And then he jumps into this horrible event right here that the Joker has put together, the death of the family, where he has kidnapped all the family of Batman and has claimed that he has torn their faces off, just like his was. But you can find out for yourself exactly whose face he tore off before we go into the next arc of Nightwing. And this story arc right here is what takes Nightwing back to kind of like the roots that I like. It's when he's rolling solo. So he leaves Gotham City and he goes to the Windy City of Chicago. So Batman lets Nightwing go. Not like he needed his permission or anything, because Dick Grayson's his own man, but he's letting him go grow up and spread his wings in the city of Chicago. So this again is now Dick Grayson rolling solo. So it really reminded me a lot of what I enjoyed about the kinetic energy, not just with the art from Brett Booth, but also the story, the way that it's written. It reminded me of that Scott McDaniel and Chuck Dixon era that I enjoyed so much. And I like when Dick Grayson is by himself. I like when he's separated from the Bat family and making his own mistakes. And here's where he's going to find his new villain again, well, or maybe potential ally. But when you're calling yourself the prankster, you're just kind of foreshadowing what is to come, especially when you're dealing with somebody from the Bat family. And in Chicago is where the storyline starts changing a little bit, where perhaps the man responsible for the death of Dick Grayson's parents could still be running around out there somewhere. So, goes from Gotham, come back to haunt him. I really like this issue right here. Anytime you have a Babs and Nightwing issue, yeah, this one right here, great cover by Tony Daniel. It's just a joy to read. Now, I do want to jump over here to look at some of this early Russell Dodderman artwork. So this is the stuff that he was doing before he was working on Thor, before he was working on War of the Realms and Scarlet Witch. This is the stuff that he was working on. And it's the tail end of Kyle Higgins' run on Nightwing. So the very last few issues that are collected in here are the ones that are done by Tim Seeley and Tom King, because they tie in directly to the Grayson storyline, which will be collected again in that omnibus format. But they went ahead and added them in here as kind of a send-off. And the reason there's a send-off is because of the events that happen, of course, in the pages of Forever Evil. And then these are the extra stories in the back here, and then the variant covers, including the Scott McDaniels cover right there. And then you have the character designs and the thumbnail sketches for the covers. And there's a Dick Grayson, Kenneth Rocafort, and Eddie Barrows. It's a cover sketch for issue number 10. Yeah, I really like these layout extras that they have. And Will Conrad. And then your end sheets, which of course look similar to that of the very front. Okay, let's talk about the binding and do a comparison. It is 824 pages. Not that big of an eye, but glossy paper stock. Let's look at some of the scenes that we can show the actual There is a little bit of bleed through happening when it's lighter colors or whites. And it's not very common because a lot of it is, of course, at nighttime. But I mean, it is very, very minimal. And let's look at the way that the double page spreads look. So very minimal gutter loss considering that eye isn't very big. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead, compare it to the way the original printing looks. So the original printing does have a little harder time staying open. The paper stock is thicker. It's a glossy paper stock, and same as the paper stock they're using over here. This one's just a little thinner than the original printing. So let's actually, we saw the way that it kind of laid over. This actually has less gutter loss, believe it or not. Let's look at the way it lays over a little bit into the book. So get a little more gutter loss here than you do over there. And this book's still trying to close on me. And a little more bleed through happening here than over in the original printing. It's got the same page count, same extras, just a different build, and also thinner paper stock. But that is Nightwing, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus 2025 edition, and that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build, and of course the comparison to the original printing of this Omni. In the comments down below, let me know if you are picking this up, if you have the original printing, or if you're upgrading from your trade paperbacks or your single issues, or if you're going in completely blind because Nightwing is your guy. And what other era of Nightwing would you like to see collected in omnibus format? That's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.